Welcome to Writing 101, Episode 3. What are writers talking about? We frequently see writers using abbreviations all over the internet, and sometimes they use them in the videos that they post on AuthorTube, sometimes they use them in the comments section. It can be very confusing if you don't know what those acronyms mean. So I'm going to give you guys a little list of acronyms and terms that you might not really know, and you might feel kind of confused about and might worry about asking about. So here we go. WIP or WIP, that would be your work in progress. Whatever you're working on, it doesn't have to have a name, it doesn't have to have anything else. We just call it the WIP. Or the WIP. MC would be your main character. A lot of us have a MC, or we might have several MCs. Pantser! I am a pantser. I don't love the name. I don't love any of these names. I don't really like being stuck in a box, but nobody puts Sarah in a corner or something. A pantser is somebody who writes by the seat of their pants. They don't plan, they don't do anything ahead of time, they just sit down and start writing and let the writing happen. Plotter, one who plots things. A person who sits down and writes either short description of what's going to happen in the story or a outline of what's going to happen in the story before they actually sit down and write the story. A plantser or a plotster, depending on who you talk to. That would be a hybrid of a pantser and a plotter. Any hybrid therein, somebody who plans a little bit and then lets their characters kind of drive after they've planned it, those kinds of things, or people who don't know what's going to connect A to C, but they do know what's going to connect C to E. And so they kind of have some ideas, but they're waiting for it to weave itself. I am a pantser, as I mentioned before, so that's the only kind of technique I can speak to. Beta reader. Technically speaking, a beta reader is an unpaid test reader. Sometimes people do pay beta readers, but technically speaking, it should be unpaid. A lot of writers use them, especially if they're self-publishing. Beta readers can give you a lot of information that you can't really get from another writer or an editor because it's coming from someone who enjoys reading the stories that you're writing and wants to make those stories better. So it's a different angle than the editor or a friend who's reading it to like look for typos or a proofreader or those kinds of things. They're reading it for a whole different reason. So a beta reader is reading it much more for story, for the feel of it, for the speed, for those things that might get missed in a more technical edit. Traditional publishing. Traditional publishing typically contains a contract. There is usually some sort of assistance with getting things done like editing or book cover or things like that. Sometimes there's assistance in all of those areas, and sometimes there will be an advance, but you will get paid based on how much you make. Vanity press. A vanity press is essentially a publisher who you pay to do all of the work for you. The biggest problem with a vanity press is that you're paying them. You end up with a bunch of copies of your own book. You end up with like a basement full of your books that you're trying to sell yourself out of the trunk of your car or at conventions or whatever. I'm not telling you not to use a vanity publisher. I'm not telling you to use a vanity publisher, but what I'm telling you is that they are considered a scam by a lot of people. The next one is self-publishing, and I think a lot of people kind of do know how this works, but I just want to be clear. If you're self-publishing, any of the services that you need related to your book must be paid for out of your pocket ahead of time. Unless you make a deal with somebody you know, there's other, obviously there's other stuff, but if you don't know anyone and you're just like gonna hop into it, you're gonna have to pay somebody to do these things, such as the cover, editing, beta reading, or some sort of other like reading stuff. You might have to make dinner for your friends to make them read your book faster. Any advertising done comes out of your pocket, but also you reap all of the rewards of those things. It's kind of one of those areas where what you get out of it depends on who you are and what you need, and what you make out of it also depends on who you are and what you need. Traditional and self-publishing can both be very lucrative, both can be very successful. You don't have to pick one or the other because someone tells you to. You should really look at the pros and cons of both of them, do some actual research on them, and see what works best for you. And that does it for episode 3. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I appreciate you coming by and watching these episodes and enjoying them. All of my info is down below: Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Snapchat, and of course my Patreon. Have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you next episode. Bye.